Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back for your Pisces new moon transit update. The new moon stations exact on March 18th, 2026 at 9:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, as always, I will have the chart right here to look at. And also, of course, as always, I will be glancing over to my notes on the side. So if you do see me looking that way, it's just the notes that I took on the transits here. And boy, do we have some transits. I feel like I've been saying that for every single video I've made in the last 2 months at minimum. And then on TikTok, even longer. And again, if you want shorter transit updates, check out my TikTok, Radius of Aurora, same name is on here. But anyway, let's dive into this behemoth that we see right here. So as expected with all new moons, the moon and the sun will come together to conjoin at 28 degrees Pisces, 28 degrees and 27 minutes to be exact. And that 28 degree mark, that's a Cancer degree. So it kind of brings that element along with being again, ruled by our Cancer Jupiter, which will have already stationed direct on March 10th. So we're finally turning back around for the first time since November 11th. But not only is it ruled by that Cancer Jupiter, it also is at a Cancer degree. So there's this added layer of nurturing and protection that this new moon is giving us. The way I like to describe the 28 degree mark is the energy of the artist. So we're not quite at that critical 29 degree of maturation and getting ready to transition into the next new cycle at 0 degrees, but we are mature enough to have gone through the entire sign up until that point. So we have an understanding, we have a know-how, and we have the skill and the talent that we need to possess in order to make tangible the lessons of whatever that sign represented up until that 28 degree mark. So again, it's the degree of the artist to me. This is based on just my own personal understanding of the zodiac, but that's how I've always seen the 28 degree. It's the degree of the artist where we can make tangible all of the knowledge and wisdom we've earned up until this point of that sign, and in this case it's Pisces, before we start to transition into the 29 degree, which is the death of the old and then the beginning of the new cycle. And again, because it's the dark of night with the new moon, it is pitch dark, or as dark as it can get in the night sky. And we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty and chaos and entropy in the world right now because of the powers that are currently withstanding here. I would just caution that it is possible there will be a push towards greater collective dissonance while we are under the darkness of this new moon on the 20 or not the 28th, on the 18th of March. I can't help but feel that there is going to be an attempt to disrupt the cohesion of the collective unconscious because Pisces as a sign is representative of the collective unconscious. I can't help but feel there's going to be trickles sent in, not necessarily overtly. We've seen plenty of overt attempts to subjugate everything that we're seeing right now, but not necessarily overtly, but because Pisces deals with the collective unconscious and the idea of water and the ocean, water holds memory. So it feels like there's going to be a more unconscious propagandized push to get us all to come to a terms with or come to an agreement of something that they want us to understand. And I know this is very nuanced, and obviously I'm not predicting the future with this. I'm just speaking on the patterns and from what I understand about astrology and how this plays out. But I would caution to be very mindful of anything you are consuming in terms of news, social media, understanding, awareness, any of that. Be very discerning what you are consuming during the days leading up to the new moon, and then throughout the new moon as well, and through the equinox, and just in general. Discernment is the name of the times that we're in right now. There's a lot of propaganda, there's a lot of lies, there's a lot of just blatant misdirection being thrown at us from every direction. But our body always knows what's true. So again, just to be mindful of what is going on in the world and how it relates to your own personal life. Don't get sucked into the vortex of the fear and the propaganda that they're feeding everybody globally. Or I should say mostly in America, because globally the truth is being told. We're in America. That's not necessarily the case. But to move on from there, still sharing that Piscean space with the sun and the moon will be Mercury, Mars, the North Node, and Vesta, the asteroid. And I'd like to focus on Mercury and the North Node first because they will be directly conjunct one another at 8 degrees. Mercury will be at 8 degrees and 39 minutes, and the North Node 8 degrees and 58 minutes. So within 20 minutes of each other, they will be directly on top of one another. And on top of that, they will be a little bit more loosely square Lilith at 9 degrees Sagittarius. So within a degree, it's still a very prominent aspect that we're making there. So Mercury and the North Node, when they come together, this is a time where your words can quite literally breathe life into the future that you are moving towards, into your destiny, into wherever you see yourself as an individual or as a collective or as your community. However you see your path ahead, when Mercury comes together with the North Node, that's a great day to speak life into the path that you would like to move towards. And Vesta is more loosely conjoining those two. Vesta's at 4 degrees and 5 minutes of Pisces. So a little bit more than 4 degree difference. And typically with asteroids, I don't take conjunctions above or that are greater than 2 degrees. But Vesta here, especially when we're talking about the North Node, it feels significant. So while the impact won't be as great as if it were within that 2 degree mark, it still feels significant. So again, Mercury is our intellect, it's our communication, it's how we communicate with each other, and also how our internal capacities communicate with one another. It's how we detect patterns, it's how we allow everything happening inside of our brains to make sense of it. And then everything that's happening outside of there, it's how we make sense of everything that goes on externally. But again, there's that emphasis on communication. There's also an emphasis on trickster energy because Mercury is ruled by Hermes. Mercury is Hermes, I should say. So and Pisces is a trickster energy as well. It's one of the oldest and wisest tricksters in the entire zodiac. We went through the entire zodiacal wheel to get to Pisces. So there's this energy of wisdom and awareness of every other sign that came before it. So there's the ability to use that intellectual side. There's that ability to act as trickster in order to amplify your own agenda. So when it comes together with Mercury, or when North Node comes together with Mercury, there is that opportunity to use your words to speak life into what you want to see grow. And if you utilize your words correctly and with intention, there's a magical aspect here, especially with Vesta. There's a magical devotional aspect which allows you to, again, speak life into what you want and potentially speak death into those that wish to do harm onto others who want to speak life into the world as a whole. Do with that what you will. But as I was saying, with Vesta being loosely conjunct, there's also that aspect of devotion because Vesta, we've talked about her a couple times on this channel. Vesta is that sacred flame. Vesta is the devotional spirit. Vesta, as a deity, she never took human form, but she exists in every single flame that is ever lit. She is the spirit of the flame. She's the spirit of our spiritual devotion. And the more we are able to stay devoted to ourselves, to our paths, to our future, and speak life on this day of the new moon, if we are able to speak life into the destiny that we see for ourselves and for the collective as a whole, because we are all one another, sister and brother, as within, so without, as above, so below. We are all connected. We are all connected. And especially since this is in Pisces, again, it's that oceanic. Every single water molecule in the ocean touches the other. Every single water molecule holds memory, and that memory bounces off of one another. So anything that you do to change internally, that water molecule that's 50,000 miles across the world, I don't even, that might be too much. I'm not good at measurements. Anyway, that other water molecule that is nowhere near you will feel that change and will start to make the shift internally as well. Vesta is that devotional aspect. So if we are able to make the changes inside of our mind, inside of our intellect, inside of how we see and perceive the world around us, how we measure the patterns and how we see ourselves measured throughout those patterns, that can connect us to our destiny, to our purpose. And then with the energy of Vesta, if we stay devoted to that destiny, to that vision, to that purpose, and continue to speak life, devotionally speak life into that destiny, purpose, vision that we see for ourselves in the collective, again, it's a very magical energy that can do a lot of good. It can do a lot of good if you use your words to speak life into what you want to see grow. And again, depending on your magical practice, a great day to speak death over what you don't want to see grow. Just saying. That's also emphasized by our Pluto energy, which I will get to. Do I want to get to it now? It does relate. I do want to talk about Pluto now. I do want to talk about Pluto now. Because Pluto will also be a bit loosely conjoined Hekate within 2 degrees of one another. Pluto is at 4 degrees and 56 minutes, and then Hekate is at 6 degrees and 57 minutes, so just over 2 degrees away. And again, I usually cut it at 2 degrees when it comes to the asteroids, but these magical asteroids and them sharing space with one another, especially with these massive planetary energies like Pluto and Mercury, when they come together that closely, it's definitely something of import. It's something that we not only should take note of, but utilize to our advantage. Hecate is the asteroid that represents our initiatory energy. It represents how we decide which way we're going to go when we approach this crossroads. So Mercury and the North Node coming together represent breathing life or death into something that will either help our purpose grow, help us move towards our destiny or bring death upon that which we want to walk away from and not see grow. Pluto with Hekate, it's the same thing, especially again because Pluto represents transitions, cycles, birth, death, the life that happens in between then, the regeneration. It's this constant revolution of birth, life, death, birth, life, death, birth, life, death, birth. That's Pluto. It's constant evolution. It's constant transformation. And Hecate being the asteroid that represents our crossroads energy, that represents initiation into a new cycle. Hecate is the mother of witches. She is the goddess that represents all witches, and she's a goddess of magic. And not only that, she rules the moon. You are meant to make petitions to Hecate under the new moon. And while she's loosely conjoined Pluto, while Mercury is conjoined the North Node, we're under a new moon. We're under a dark moon. And again, we have that square with the dark mother, the dark moon Lilith, which I actually didn't even talk about yet, but we have that square with the dark moon Lilith to our Mercury and our North Node. So this energy of this new moon, when we focus specifically on Hecate and Pluto together, that's the energy, if you're combining it with the North Node Mercury energy, of literally allowing the death of the old cycle to burn away so you can step into this initiation at this crossroads and decide this is the way I'm going and this is the way I'm going to stick to it. And I will use that Vesta energy to stay devotional towards this path as I continuously, even beyond this new moon, speak life into what I want to see grow and speak death into what I want to see crumble. That's emphasized by Pluto. Because again, Pluto is the cycles, Pluto is regeneration, Pluto is transformation, Pluto is allowing death to be a natural part of life because it is. It's not being afraid to let things die. It's not being afraid of change. It's embracing the change. And Hecate helps us embrace that change. She helps us embrace the change so we can move towards this initiatory energy, so we can be decisive when it comes to that crossroads and say, I recognize I've been comfortable and cool with this path up until now, but it's time to go. It's time to go a different direction. And you walk up to that crossroads not timidly, not in fear, but with assuredness. But knowing that, yeah, I'm making a change. Come with me. Come with me. And then again, just to touch on the dark moon Lilith and how she's squaring our Mercury and North Node conjunction. We only have two squares in this whole chart. So other than this Lilith and North Node slash Mercury square, and then we have Jupiter directly squaring our Venus, which is at 15 degrees Aries and Cancer. Squares help to ground things into reality. Squares are known as malefic aspects because they bring necessary tension. Because in the physical realm, we exist within the bounds of this physicality, right? We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So, yes, we are spirit. We are the essence of spirit, but we are bound by our physical matter. We are bound by matter in this iteration of life that we find ourselves in. So the reason squares are considered malefic is because our spirits, the energy of the astrology that moves through us, the energy of God that moves through us, wants us to be unbounded. But the squares remind us that, hey, I know you're infinite, but for now you gotta be a little bit finite. You have to be finite when you exist in this matter. So that's why they're considered malefic. But at the same time, they help us make tangible something that we want to see grow in our lifetimes, in this existence as physical matter. So with Lilith squaring that Mercury North Node conjunction, that helps us take all of the aspects and sides of ourselves that have been demonized, that have been brutalized, that have been cast out, that dark divine feminine who has been taught to hide her rage and pretend it doesn't exist so she can be the picture perfect version of what it means to be a woman in Western society. That's what Lilith says to that. She says, I don't give a fuck what you want. I mentioned it before. I won't go into detail here. The story of Lilith, she was cast out because she wanted to be equal with Adam in the Garden of Eden. Every single day when they had sex, Adam was on top of Lilith. And one day Lilith said, hey, it could be fun and just like a change of things and make things more equal. What if every once in a while I get on top? Rather than you getting on top of me every single time, let's make it fair. I'm not demanding to be on top every time, but let's change it up a little bit. She's like, missionary's boring. Let me have a ride, right? And Adam said, I don't like that. So he went to the Almighty and was like, yo, this biatch, she's trying to take away my power. She wants to lay on top of me. Can you imagine that blasphemy? And his God, I don't claim that, his God said, yeah, that's ridiculous, and tried to force her into compliance. And she said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm getting the fuck out of here. And she fled. And rather than leaving her alone and letting her live just however she wants to live her life, she was pregnant, by the way. So we're chasing and tormenting a pregnant woman she didn't want to bring down the kingdom. She didn't want to do anything with Eden anymore. She said, okay, you don't want me here? I will leave. I will leave and I will live my life and I will mind my business and you will never see or hear from me again. I won't be an issue. They couldn't handle that because the idea of a sovereign woman is terrifying to the patriarchy. That's why Lilith has been demonized. Because she said, I just want to mind my business. You can do whatever you want over there. I want nothing to do with it. All she wanted was equality. All she wanted was to be equal. So that's what Lilith represents in our birth chart. It's that divine feminine rage that has been cast out, that only wants to exist as she naturally is in her fullness, in her fullest expression, as her rage, as her softness, as her beauty, as her darkness, as all of it. That's what Lilith represents. It's that wounded divine feminine that is so sick of being cast out. So when she is squaring our Mercury and North Node together, that energy of speaking life and or death into what we want to see grow and what we want to see crumble that we don't need anymore. When Lilith squares that, it's allowing the energy of that dark divine feminine aspects of ourselves. And in the Western society, it's usually the rage that has been repressed, allowing that rage to ground that desire for either growth and abundance towards our destiny, or again, death towards what we want to see crumble. It's allowing ourselves to utilize that dark divine feminine rage to ground our words and our destiny onto earth, into reality. And as we are seeing the powers start to come back into balance very slowly, we're seeing this on a collective level, just even in individuals. We're seeing this collectively where women are starting to take more power and go against what has been westernly defined as femininity, because that's bullshit. It's always been bullshit. But women are going against what has been perceived as femininity and tapping more into their masculine side. I can't emphasize the air quotes enough. This is just the system. And same thing with men. We're seeing men be softer and kinder and taking a more submissive way to allow the women to rule and lead towards a matriarchy. We're seeing this collectively on an individual scale. That's what that Lilith represents there. It's that starting to bring the scales back into balance. And that's part of the reason why we're seeing the world as destructive and chaotic as it is right now. Because the scales are finally coming back into balance. But if a scale has been on this side for so long, it's not just going to immediately go back there and everything's going to be still and peaceful and serene and quiet. No. We're going to put more weight on this side, and then it's going to go that side, and then we're going to go back this way, and then this way. It's going to be a little bit rocky for a while until finally it starts to calm itself down. And again, I'm going to emphasize this, as within, so without. If you are tapping into fear, especially while Mercury is conjunct the North Node, if you are allowing your system to be overrun by fear, the greatest thing you can do, shut down everything, shut off your senses, go into meditation, and find the root of that fear. So it's no longer programming you. So it's no longer guiding your speech. It's no longer guiding your thought forms. It's no longer having you find patterns of fear in the world, but to reclaim your sovereignty. But moving on from there, let's go back up. We'll talk about Mars because that is the final placement in Pisces before we move into Aries. And Mars is not making any real aspects to anything really. It's loosely trining our Jupiter within 3 degrees, or even less than 3 degrees. It's like 2.5 degrees. So that I actually like that. I like that a lot. But it's really just an emphasis with Mars being in Pisces, where Mars is our planet of drive and ambition and passion and being driven towards our ambitions through our passions. Mars is the planet of action, typically ruling Aries, which is the first planet of Aries and Scorpio, I should say, but Aries being the first planet of the zodiac. It wants to go, it wants to do, it wants to be physical, it wants to be embodied, it wants to be in its body and using its energy, that infinite energy that moves through them, to put action into their words. But when Mars is underwater in Pisces, you can't run underwater. You can't move quickly underwater. The only way you can actually make progress underwater is by A, breath control and swimming. And not just thrashing your body all over the place, which Mars usually wants to do, right? It wants to be active and physical in a way that makes it feel alive, right? But when you're underwater, Mars has to take a more strategic route to get the farthest. So it can't just like doggy paddle and like freak out because it's going to drown, right? It's going to drown if it freaks itself out. So with Mars and Pisces, especially again, trining that Jupiter and Cancer there's an emphasis on being more strategic and long term oriented in the actions you see yourself taking towards your passions and towards your ambition. You need to approach this not as a kicking and screaming, but again, especially with everything going on in the world, we need to be centered as individuals. So the Mars and Pisces energy is giving you an opportunity to find that patience and deliberation in the process of your movement. Again, work on your breath control and slowly but surely do the breaststroke, do the backstroke. Teach yourself how to maneuver through the waters before you get back to the land. It's like a triathlon. You have to pace yourself, especially when you're in the water. Because if you just try to go all out while you're in the water, yeah, you'll get there the fastest, but then you're out of breath and you can't go into the next round with as much energy or stamina that you may have wanted to go into the next round because you were pushing yourself too hard. Mars and Pisces, it's finding that delicate balance between forward motion, forward movement, going ahead and pacing yourself. And especially with it being trine Jupiter, trines are harmonious aspects. They work really well together when they're trine. And with Jupiter also being in Cancer, the water sign, it's that emphasis on yes, allow this vision of your internal passions and how it connects to your emotional body as well. Allow this vision to expand while you're pacing yourself. Don't lose sight of the vision of expansion. Don't lose sight of the path you're headed. Don't lose sight of the way you're going forward. But as you're pacing yourself, one by one, working on your breath, control, don't ever lose sight of that vision. But pace yourself. I feel like this Mars in Pisces, especially with Jupiter involved in Cancer, it's very much Knight of Pentacles energy in the tarot. You can see where you're going, but you're in no rush to get there because you know every step of the way will grant you a greater sense of wisdom or personal control, personal sovereignty, self-sufficiency, self-reliance. Take things slow and don't lose the vision. That's kind of what Mars and Pisces is doing. And we will jump into Aries, but we'll continue to talk about the Venus, which is making a square to Jupiter, just to stay kind of in a coherent process here. But Venus is at 15 degrees Aries, 15 degrees 39 minutes, and then Jupiter is at 15 degrees and 11 minutes Cancer. So those two are square each other. And again, that square aspect being one of two in this chart of a lot of unconscious, collective unconscious, and fiery Aries energy, that square, along with the Lilith square, brings much needed stability to this chart that is kind of all over the place and flailing around and trying to figure itself out as it goes. And this square in specifically is allowing you to bring passion and fire and vitality to the things that are valuable to you. So that which you hold value in, and just your values in general with how you approach the world, your values, what you see beauty in the world. And again, your passions that allow you to stay devoted to that sense of beauty and autonomy and everything in between. That's the word I wanted a second ago when I was talking about Mars, autonomy. Anyway, it's connecting your values and that spark of life, that beauty, that vitality with that sense of expansion. So again, just because this aspect is a malefic aspect, that doesn't mean it's bringing bad luck, which we would see luck connected with Jupiter. It's not bad luck or a negative sense of your values or less beauty or more destruction in that case, but it's bringing tension to that idea so that your values and what you find beauty in this life and your capacity for growth and expansion are being pulled at one another so that you are able to not just look at your values as something that are intangible and far out and just in your mind. It's not looking at luck as just something that's an abstract concept. It's allowing you to take your values and connect it with growth, luck, and expansion so they can bring tension together to, again, bring that energy down to earth so it's something you can grab onto and utilize to your advantage. And this is emphasized as we think about Mercury and the North Node and Lilith in combination with that, and then Pluto bringing destruction to what doesn't need to be here anymore so we can allow the growth of our new initiatory transition. All of this is melding together beautifully. Beautifully. And when Jupiter is squaring Venus, It's allowing that tension between your values and what you want to see grow so you can bring them down onto the earth. Breathe life into how you want to see that grow, how you want to see your vision manifest as you move forward. And Jupiter is wisdom as well. Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius and Pisces. Sagittarius is higher learning. Pisces, again, is the entire zodiacal wheel put together and the collective unconscious. So there's this aspect of wisdom where Aries is very fast paced. It wants to do things quickly. And when Venus is in Aries, it's like a little kid on a playground where like your first crush, you love them. You love them. You've been dating for 2 days and you're in love and you're gonna get married. Like that's Venus and Aries energy, where it's very impulsive and very spontaneous. But when it combines with Jupiter like that, it allows that slow pace. It allows you to have that passion and spontaneity and excitement of the Venus and Aries energy to have longevity, which we see not only with Cancer, because Cancer understands, Cancer being the sister sign of Capricorn, it understands the value of patience and dedication and hard work. But again, Jupiter with wisdom, yes, Jupiter is luck and growth and expansion and spontaneity in its own capacity, but it's also the wisdom of the work. So it takes that excited, passionate energy that wants to be spontaneous and right now, right here, right now, it takes that Venus energy and allows the tension to help it maintain that passion for the longevity so that it's long-term growth, as we've been discussing. And again, especially with the Mercury and the North Node conjunction. I've been sensing a theme here with everything I'm talking about. Are you sensing a theme? Well, it's just going to continue with this next one. So we have Saturn at 3 degrees and 56 minutes in Aries, directly conjunct our asteroid Persephone at 3 degrees and 20 minutes in Aries. So less than a degree away, 36 minutes away from each other, very, very closely conjunct. And if you think about the story of Persephone, Persephone is innocence and the loss of innocence. Persephone is a heartbreaking story about being kidnapped when she's just frolicking around, playing with her friends, looking at a flower, and then the ground opens up as she looks at that flower and she's swallowed whole and brought into the realm of the underworld to be kidnapped and treated very poorly by Hades, the ruler of the underworld. And everything she went through was horrific. She was tricked, she was duped, she was treated treated piss poorly by this man who was her uncle, piss poorly by this man who colluded with her father to kidnap her because they knew that her mom would not go for it, and she didn't. Demeter nearly starved the world when Persephone was taken, demanding the justice that both her and her daughter deserved. And yes, they ended up having to compromise because she was, again, tricked by her uncle, who is now her. Anyway, I love Persephone. She deserved better. But the moral of the story is this: she was tricked, she was kidnapped, she was treated poorly. That's all true. The compromise was settled so that she wasn't only in the underworld forever. She got to go up half the year she's up in the physical realm, half the year she's in the underworld. But the moral of the story here, while she lost her innocence in the process, while she was treated the way she was treated, she ended up gaining an entire kingdom tool. She's now a queen. So it's not that everything that she went through was for naught. So if Persephone represents our innocence and our subsequent loss of innocence, when she comes together with Saturn, with Kronos, the god of time, our discipline, he's the builder, he's the long-term. I see myself being here in 10 years, and to get there in 10 years, I need to do this today. I need to do that tomorrow, and I need to do this the next day. He does that every single day for 10 years. And in 10 years, not only is he where he saw himself being, he's beyond that because he stayed disciplined and he never lost the vision. He never lost the sight. When we combine the energy of the story of Persephone, the loss of innocence, but the gaining of a kingdom, rulership, queendom, combined with Saturn, that long-term discipline and growth and awareness. This is a promise that anything that you are moving through right now that may bring you into the darkness of your own underworld or in the collective underworld, anything that's bringing you into the darkness right now, if you are able to hold and maintain that vision we talked about with Mars and with the North Node and Mercury, if you allow death of what needs to die, if you stay devoted and dedicated and disciplined towards that long-term vision you see yourself achieving in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, not only will you gain exactly what you see yourself achieving, you're guaranteed to gain even more than that. Things you could never even imagine you would be gaining. Things you can't dream of imagining to gain. That's Saturn and Persephone together. Yes, you are losing your innocence. Yes, it might be through really nefarious ways, but it's not for naught. Not only is it not for naught, it's you will end up in a better position than you could ever imagine yourself, as long as you stay devoted, disciplined, and dedicated to that vision. And you nurture that vision every single morning when you wake up. Any thought that pops into your head that tells you that vision is not possible, you extinguish it immediately because you no longer hold on to the innocence that every thought that comes in your mind actually belongs to you. You're tapping into the wisdom that understands sometimes thoughts are not my own, and sometimes thoughts are purposely placed in my mind to keep me from going towards what I am actually meant to accomplish in this lifetime. Especially when we look at the regime, they do not benefit from people discovering their sovereignty and stepping out of the rat race, out of their systems, to discover their own way in this world. They don't benefit. So they will do everything, and I mean everything in their power, to infiltrate and make you think whatever you see yourself achieving is not possible. Because if they cause enough doubt in your mind, you're back in the system. You're back under their control. You're back feeding their own agenda rather than your own, rather than that which promotes harmony and unity. So just keep that in mind. Be very mindful of the thoughts and trust that whatever you envision yourself doing or achieving in this lifetime, you would not have that vision if it weren't possible. Whatever you can envision, whatever you can believe, you can truly achieve. But it's about getting over the doubts of the mind. And that's part of the disciplinary action of Saturn. It's recognizing what is yours and what is not, and releasing what is not. And as we've already talked about so much in this chart already, a lot of what is not yours is ready to be released. It's ready to be burned away. Just in the aspect of time, let's move on to Uranus, 28 degrees and 15 minutes in Taurus. So that will be making a direct sextile to the sun and moon, which I won't go deeply into this, but Uranus is about disruption. It's chaos, it's upheaval. It's just unpredictable things. So when you have that sextiling, which sextile is half of a trine, it's a harmonious aspect, but not as strongly, like not as prevalent, I should say, as trines or squares, but still a harmonious aspect. So when the planet that represents disruption and upheaval and chaos for the sake of chaos's sake, Uranus was Kronos, Uranus was Saturn's dad. So imagine Saturn, whose discipline is father time, very serious. Sometimes kids go so far against what their parents did because they just didn't agree with what their parents did. That's kind of the relationship between Saturn and Uranus. Uranus is eclectic. Uranus is just like the crazy, like a Mad Hatter energy. That's Uranus. You never know what the fuck's coming out of his mouth next. And you don't know if it's going to make sense. You don't know if it's going to be nonsense. You don't know if it's going to make sense under the nonsense. You don't know what. You don't know what. You don't know what. So with it being sextile, the dark moon, the new moon, and the sun, there is an aspect of unpredictability in the dark of night. And with it being in Taurus, Taurus doesn't like Uranus energy because Taurus likes streamline, but it's a very grounded earthly energy. So that unpredictability will be grounded onto the earth. And that's why I'm going to emphasize what I said earlier. Be very mindful of the trickery of the current establishment. Because I think that Uranus energy is going to be more tied into the collective energy and what we are being fed collectively to believe and cause doubt and uncertainty in than it is going to be at an individual level. So just be mindful. Be mindful of that. And through that mindfulness, allow yourself to recognize when things are being fed to you purposefully so you can start to regain a sense of personal autonomy and trust within yourself to establish that more secure home within yourself. So that in the future, when trickery comes about, you can feel it. You're not questioning and second guessing and overthinking. You feel it and you know it instantly. And you're saying, oh, that's trickery. I'm not falling for that. You know what it feels like because you have felt it in your body when there's dissonance. Once you feel in your body what dissonance feels like, dissonance cannot get to you because you don't make sense of things anymore. You make sense of things. You're not overthinking. This is programmable. This is not. This is your compass. That's that energy there. Neptune at 1 degree. You know what? I'm going to talk more about Neptune for my Aries season video because it's not making any direct aspects or conjunctions. I mean, it is loosely conjoined, that Persephone Neptune, or the Persephone Saturn conjunction. And I guess all I'll say is just a reminder that Neptune is the great dissolver, where Saturn is the builder, and with Persephone in between that, and then Neptune kind of sitting in between too, the sun and the moon and Saturn. So it's almost like while the sun is bringing illumination to the moon, which is our deeper truths and vulnerabilities, it's allowing us that final opportunity to dissolve what is not true to our values, what is not true to us, to bring illumination to recognize that, allow that conjunction, looser conjunction with Neptune to dissolve what does not belong to us. So then we can use that Saturn energy to rebuild what does. And again, we'll talk more about that in the Aries season. Just again, trying to be mindful of time. I love this. I love this. I love this stuff. There's so much to say. And this is arguably the most important, which I've already spoken on before, but it's exact. On the new moon, this conjunction is exact. Are, of course, talking about Chiron at 24 degrees and 58 minutes in Aries, directly conjunct Eris, the asteroid of discord and entropy and chaos and destruction, at 24 degrees and 59 minutes Aries. They literally could not get any more on top of each other than they are here on this day of the new moon. And again, I've been talking about this conjunction for 2 months now. For 2 months. Eris, as I just mentioned, is chaos, it's discord, it's upheaval. Chiron is our deepest wounds and our best efforts to heal those wounds in this lifetime. When the asteroid of chaos joins the asteroid of our wounds, especially as we're talking about the beneficial energy of the breath of life and speaking life over your life right now, and speaking death over what does not serve you anymore, how have your wounds and the stories you've been telling yourself of your wounds and traumas, how have those stories been holding you back? How have you sculpted your identity around the coping mechanisms that you had to embody in order to remain safe while you were while you were still actively being harmed by whatever was causing you harm and those traumas and those wounds? How have you allowed those coping mechanisms to keep you safe and confined in your own little bubble so that you don't have to go out and explore and explore you don't have to go in and explore, nor do you have to go out and explore because you're fine, you're content, you're comfortable, I'm good here, I'm chilling. There's nothing I got to do. I'm safe. I'm safe. Eris is asking you to say fuck being safe. Being safe does not equate being alive and living and thriving, and especially with all of the energy we have in this chart of the long term vision and the long term growth and destiny, the destiny that you deserve to live. Oh, my jaw just cracked. Oh, God. More on the speaking aspect. That was a loosening of the throat chakra. Do a jaw exercise real quick. Loosen it up. I know you're holding the tightness there. When you allow the asteroid that represents that entropy to come together with your wounds and the stories of the wounds and the traumas you've been telling yourself, allow the chaos to reign. Allow the entropy to gulp up anything you're still telling yourself that keeps you safe. Because we're moving into a time where safety is not the priority anymore. Safety isn't an option anymore. But the ironic part about that is when you move towards your destiny, when you move towards what you know you're meant for in this lifetime, you're always divinely exactly where you need to be, which means you're always going to be safe because you know you're meant to achieve this. And everywhere you go in the process of going to achieve that thing, nothing can happen to you because you're divinely guided. So rather than trying to focus on safety, focus on your destiny. Focus on the extent to which you can go to follow your excitement. And with every step you take, safety is guaranteed. To an extent, life happens and you can't avoid those things. But everything that happens in the process of you reaching that goal is meant to happen. And in the meantime, you'll be able to have more help, more access to help in terms of people, of resources, of areas, of weather, even. You'll have help, the likes of which you thought were intangible before, as you're on the path towards your destiny. But that is not accessible to you if you're keeping yourself safe. Eris combining with Chiron as close as they possibly can be within 1 minute of each other. Not 1 degree, 1 minute of each other. That is the final rumblings. That is the final rumblings before we get to the equinox. That happens 2 days after the new moon. The final rumblings, to allow the final crumblings so that Pluto and the dark moon and Hecate and all of these things that are allowing us to break down what does not belong to us anymore, so it can burn away, clear it out like a forest fire, so that once the equinox comes and we are officially in Aries season and all of these energies start to move out of Pisces and into Aries, it's time to build. It's time to go. It's time to start. This is an energy, especially as we move into Aries season, where we're not focused on surrender anymore. We're not surrendering to the tides. The universe, show me the way. No, Aries wants to do. And not only does Aries want to do, it learns by doing. It learns by doing. You will find that when you are on the path towards your destiny, even when you trip and fall on your face, you will experience more joy and fulfillment tripping and falling on your face and getting up and trying again than you would have ever known in your cozy walls. And that's the truth. And you won't know that's the truth until you experience it. This new moon is the final rumblings to allow the final crumblings so that we can start anew. Not only individually, but collectively as well. Take heed, babes. Take heed because this energy is potent. And if you made it this far, thanks for hanging out with me and listening to my passions. I love this stuff, and I just plan to do this for a long time. Whether one person sees it or 100 or 1,000, I don't know. Right now, it's more towards the one, but I'm okay with that because I know that one person is meant to. And that's the energy we're moving with as we move towards this equinox and through this new moon. You're doing it because you love to do it, not because you feel like you should. You're doing it because you love to do it, not because you feel like you should. You're doing it because you love to do it, not because you feel like you should. And that's all I got. I love y'all. And stay tuned for our Aries season transit update, which I'll post it probably a couple days after this one. So keep a lookout for that. But otherwise, thanks for being here. Love y'all so much. Talk to you later. Bye. Happy new moon. Okay, bye.